tool, of course, we're a very visualization centric tool, right? We're hierarchy, objects, and so on. Now, those objects, if you look on the right hand side, you have different object types. We got some airplanes and bridges and buildings and all kinds of stuff. The objects for us don't really matter. I mean, it's whatever you want it to be. So you're like, oh, I want to document, a fire extinguisher in the data center or around my facilities, so I know where all these things are, and I want information about those objects as well. So you're like, what specifically, um, from an asset management side, would you be tracking? I mean, in our tool, we kind of can track anything. And then you have data fields about the object or objects as well. So you can track specific data points that you might want to get information about. Now, I'm just sort of drilling down here in my hierarchy, but something like a building, where I have a building on a map. This is, I zoomed in, by the way. So zoom in. I've got a building on a map, and it's got some data points like an address and a zip code and so on. A building might be an asset, but it might be just something, well, you're just a facility, right? So it's not maybe as critical. But if you're doing asset management, you want to know, you define, of course, what those assets are. And an asset could be anything that you're purchasing, right? It doesn't have to be just routers and switches and that sort of thing. It might be, like I mentioned, fire extinguishers in your facilities or data center that you need to track, and you need to know dates and stuff on because they expire. So you want to have the ability to see that information, maybe do reports, get reporting information out of the system, create your own reports, and so on. So in our tool, we allow you to do really all those types of things. And not everybody always sort of knows that, some of the features and functionality within the tool. So for instance, if I'm looking at something like rooms and floors, I mean, you may track things as simple as quantity of devices and ports and things like that. But what we're really typically getting down to is, I want to know what I have and data about it. But it's usually more in a format of like a table or a view kind of thing, right? So, um, and I'm going to show you, that's more the reporting side of the house, right? Those sort of reporting aspects of what you might be looking at. So, this is a good example where you have a large set of information or data, and you may want to track it or do reports about it. So, for instance, this is a cabinet elevation view of floor plan data center, where you've got things like, Lieberts and power and other things. But more importantly, you have cabinets and equipment, maybe cameras, maybe temperature sensors, specifically racks and that sort of thing. In our tool, we usually give you counters out of the box from the standpoint of, if you're on the right-hand side, you've got a quantities like nodes, 65, cabinets, 123, devices, 43, 431, and aliases. So these are all the objects in the cabinets. Then we've got the cabinets themselves, where if I want to go into a table view, I can do that. I can click on, here's the cabinet, here's the view, here's the information about each cabinet, here's the number of children and children in the cabinet, and so on. This may not be the view you care about. You may be, I need very specific, like the cabinet and all the data fields about the cabinets. This is more all the cabinets and some specific things like the number of children for the cabinet. So the devices that are basically inside. So again, IT asset management, with respect to IT, you're talking about, usually your data centers and your racks and cabinets and so on. And out of the box, again, for the diagram as a whole, I can go look at nodes, cabinets, and devices, and sort of see that information there. I can also, if I want to, I can also, of course, visit the the cabinet itself, from the standpoint of, I can see equipment in the cabinet, right? So the actual devices. So now we're getting down into what most people view as the true assets, the objects and so on, the equipment. So in this case, I'll move this data field off to the side here. It belongs over here. If I click on a device on the left-hand side, you have data fields, and so on about that device. There's an audit trail for it, catalog. And you have all these data fields, and those data fields are in our tool are user defined. So you can go in and change the fields. You don't have to ask us to do that for you. You just go in and do it through the catalog, which I'll talk about the catalog in a second. So, you can track assets, you can track the data about the assets, and then you can, of course, have, different reports or information about the assets as well. If you're in a cabinet elevation, you could just give a list of all the assets, like the 40 devices that are in here. Hey, just give me a list of this cabinet and all the equipment in it. Sometimes that's useful. People just want to know what's in that particular cabinet because maybe you're planning on doing some moves or changes, or you just want sort of information about it. I can also specifically go into device or device type. In this case, this Dell EqualLogic. I could go to the catalog for it and actually see the number of instances for this. This is one way to see that quantity. There's other ways as well where you can see that information too. So it doesn't all have to come from one specific place. You may get to the same information and data from different places as well. So, but if I click on this 12 instance count, you'll see it's telling me every Dell EqualLogic. It tells me all the data fields, or shows me. In fact, these are out. I can edit these too. So I can come in here and edit this like it were a table form, and just go in there and populate. And these could all be drop downs and other things. This is just an example of what you can do. It's not, this is how it's done. It's more of what you can do with the tool. So if I go back, so out of the box, you have these different sort of ways of getting data out of the system to see how many of a specific object type that I have. Object type. I keep mentioning that word, saying things like object type. So speaking of object types, the catalog is what we refer to as the object types, or at least I do. And the types are things like nodes, racks, devices, and links. Undock this for a second. Move this over a little bit. So drag it out. So these objects, these nodes, racks, and devices, that's really speaks back to assets. Whether it's a building or a floor or a room. I mean, some of these were just things I created just to have fun with, but as I was doing whatever. But in your environment, you might have objects, these node object types. Usually nodes for us are things that represent kind of hierarchy, buildings, floors, rooms, etc. It's more the devices that are things that are real, sort of the IT assets, the switches, the servers, the patch panels, etc. Those are the things. And then racks as well. User defined. These things can all be changed and add your own data fields. You can add your own devices to the catalog, your own object types to the nodes, racks, and links. We provide you with thousands of device types out of the box, and some racks, and 100 different rack types, and a lot of node types as well out of the box. But you can change those. You can update those. You can request new ones from us, or you can create them yourself. So it's pretty flexible. But this speaks to what we do. These objects. That's what you're documenting. So not only in the DCIM tool are you creating documentation, but you're also I'm just switching to a asset view. But you're also creating data and information about your environment that you can then sort of mine and understand what you have and where it is. So it's not just a form, where you're going into some system where, it tells you about the asset, but do you know where the asset actually lists besides a field that says, oh, this is in building Y and floor 2? Here you're visually seeing it. And some people don't care about the visual side. They don't care about seeing it. And that's where you have obviously asset management systems that are more form-based and more just like a database structure, versus having something where you actually have objects that are out and rack mounted, and you can visually see them, and you can actually show how they're connected with fields and or with cables and that sort of thing, right? So here, this is a view of, assets by vendor or by category, where I can go in and say, oh, well, I want to see these IBM devices or Hitachis or something, because maybe they're expired or some maintenance is coming due and you're trying to decide if you want to get rid of them or replace them or whatever. So you can go into a table view and you can export this to CSV and, get information, view that information. You can see your top 10 devices by model, like down here. What do we have the most of, quantity, and those types of reports. So again, it lets you, really see kind of what's out there in your environment, right? Now, if we switch over to our catalog, you may want to see all the objects in the catalog, but you might want to see what's in use quantity wise. And you could do that on the reporting side. You can also do that in the catalog side, where I can actually sort and see all the COM powers and how many, and the Cisco ASR 9000s and how many, and click on information and actually have that come up and show me a nice table view of all that data, right? So again, we're very obviously visual, but you can also, of course, have these views that are more, table based of data that you can export. The reports that you see in the reporting tool, those can be, you can choose to create and modify and do things like that as well if you need to. That's, just kind of up to you how you want to change them. We also have, if we go to tools, query, there's something called the query tool, which allows you to go in and create your own table type reports. So I can go in and say, show me all of this particular asset type. And you can save those. I don't really have any in this particular project, but if I wanted to go in and say, show me all the link types or node types, show me all the Dell servers or all the Dell equipment, you can use this part of netTerrain to basically go out and do that as well. So, but again, that kind of speaks back. So this shows you kind of the relationship of when you have a DCIM tool, how you can use and take advantage of it also as more of an asset management side of the house too. And that's, so if you're looking at your own tools that you currently have, whether it's netTerrain or not, you might see what capabilities you have there from the standpoint of creating your own reports, exporting data, what tools are available as well to allow you to do that. Now, if you want to get more, into the weeds, maybe you go and do your own, use the REST APIs and do kind of your own development as far as getting data out of the system and that sort of thing. It's another way maybe to do some testing or work as well. So that's all. I think that's all I had. If you guys have questions, let me know. I think I had a polling question. I'm going to start. There was kind of two polling questions. One was the which tools do you currently use that house information about the network? You can select more than one. So things like spreadsheets, Visio, AWS, ServiceNow, SolarWinds, Spectrum, and other. So if you take a second, I mean, usually the big winners are always typically spreadsheets. I got some Visio out there and other. I don't see a lot of AWS and ServiceNow right now, but so that's good. I got one more for you. I'll end this one. 30 seconds. That's good. And then I will go. I think there was a second polling question too, if you don't mind. I think. Where's my other polling question? I'll close out. Maybe it was just one. I don't see a second one. So it must have been one. Sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty common, right? Excel and Visio, pretty high use stuff. They're great tools, but Excel is keeping track of spreadsheets can be a little cumbersome at times. Doesn't give you a lot of visual appeal as far as, where things are, and of course, how they're connected together. I mean, if you're talking about you want to get into connections port to port or object to object, doing logical and physical drawings, it's a little tough. So things to think about. What else? Yeah, I don't see any questions right now. So, oh, here we got one. For ITAM, how can you discover items like operating system running, how much RAM, etc.? So yeah, that's a great question. I'm just gonna hit stop share. By the way, we should still all be here, but so if we have something called the collector, which allows you to go out and collect data about a system, and that might be so for a lot of systems, it's like doing an SNMP get. I'm going to do SNMP to a server, switch, router, and get information. SNMP can really bring back pretty much anything you want. Now, in the case of the question that you said, WMI, the Windows Media Interface, you can definitely use that with our collector as well. And the WMI will read things like operating system and bring back. So the nice thing about that is you don't really have to install an agent or anything on those systems because they're just using built-in capabilities of the system. But of course, it has to be turned on. WMI is not really turned on by default on a Windows server, so you have to go out and of course configure it if it's not already for that. Same with SNMP. Most things aren't configured for SNMP, so you'd have to turn it on. I mean, there's other tools you could do where you go out and do like an Nmap discovery and try and base things on open ports. Nmap does a pretty good job of, trying to get that information. So, do you provide asset reports? Say, what are my assets that are under warranty? Yeah, I mean, we have out of the box reports. We have reports you can create yourself, and you can request reports when you're a customer. Under maintenance, there are certain types of reports we'll do for you. Usually it's the table type reports. Oh, and also keep in mind that tool, the query generating tool, is a great way to generate asset type reports because it's there. You just press some buttons and you can do exactly that. Bring in a warranty field or service contract field and that sort of thing. So it's pretty good. Says netTerrain cloud, or can I install it on my server? Oh no, it's on. It's in. If you're talking about the query tool, that's built into netTerrain 8.6, so that's there. It should be under. Let me see if I can find it. Try to remember where it's at. It should be under tools query. You should have it there. So give that a go. And again, if there's other things you're looking to do, maybe it's not as robust as you need, just request. If you're a current customer, you can request. We'll have a discussion with you about reports. So it's all good. I don't see anything else. Any other questions? Thanks everybody for your time. Sorry about the delay. If you have questions, just reach out. I didn't even announce myself in the beginning of this thing. I'm Jason, by the way. So if you're new to these, jason.sherman@graphicalnetworks.com. But I would recommend if you have questions, go through the sales channel first, and we can set up a call and answer any questions you might have. Or, of course, if you're a customer, just open the support line, and we can help you there too. Oh, another question: which software is best to create devices? Paint's pretty. Yeah, I don't know how easy Paint would be. It kind of depends when you say create devices. If you're talking about just finding the image of a device, usually I just do a search, but sometimes the Visio stencils is a good way to go to get devices. But we can talk to you about that offline or through Zendesk ticket. Happy to talk to you more about that and find out what you're trying to do. And of course, you can open a ticket and request devices too, but sometimes I know you need to create yourself. Or would like to, so understood. But all right, I'm going to let everybody go. Thank you very much for your time. If you have questions, just let us know.